It's the Brad and John Show.
It is, and the date today is December 12th. I got it right that time. This is B Block, and you can listen to the show live. It's done 7 to 8 o'clock every morning, Monday through Friday. And then also, if you don't catch it live, like you people who are not listening to it live because you're listening to it on our podcast, which is on bjshow.co, or you're listening to the podcast, which is a video format on YouTube, which is bjshow.video.
And Brad, we can apologize for the fact that yesterday's show, which was a terrific show, those are not in the archives.
Yeah, unfortunately. The computer didn't, we have a computer that's in another studio that records the show, and for some crazy reason, that computer is like super reliable. For some reason, in the middle of the show, it decided to reboot itself, and unfortunately, I was not able to sometimes I can recover the file. Unfortunately, I could not recover the file, so that's gone and out into the Ethernet, forever gone. Okay. We talked about this yesterday, about the drone thing. And once again, it's not necessarily of particular interest in the St. Louis area because we haven't had this problem. But yesterday on Mark Reardon, he had this fascinating guy who apparently has become somewhat of an expert on, as far as a media expert in this. He's an ex-Special Forces guy who specializes in this. And it was pretty chilling what he talked about. First off, he talked about the fact that, you see all this money that the FBI has, and they're trying to build this new, multi-billion-dollar headquarters in Virginia someplace. Isn't that the deal with their new headquarter building?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do you know what their budget is for anti-drone terrorism attacks? In other words, the FBI has this own little department within the FBI which is specializing on trying to prevent drone attacks from...
I don't know. I'm guessing it's a large amount of money, though.
No, just the opposite.
Zero.
$500,000.
Oh, that's not much.
Yeah, $500,000. Now, keep in mind, we spend billions on this program and billions in that program. But what was interesting was, and sort of what I talked about, and I don't want to sound like I'm so focused on this asymmetrical warfare kind of thing, but that's exactly what he said. He said the drones are a perfect vehicle for low-budget terrorist kind of people to essentially create huge havoc. And what the point he brought out was he works with several companies that are contracted by the NFL. Believe it or not, the NFL hires these companies, and they're essentially drone protection companies. The problem is they can't do anything. Do you know why?
Why?
FAA regulations. It is illegal. So and this came out with the deal with New Jersey. People go, why don't you shoot it down? Matter of fact, the governor of New Jersey actually came out and said that in one instance, one of the state highway patrol in New Jersey, one of the state troopers' helicopters saw one of these drones and literally went on top of it. Not to the point where within feet, but within a couple hundred feet, and was literally on top of this drone tracking it. And the reporters would say, why did they do anything? We can't, because the FAA says you can't do that. If you see a drone hovering in your backyard and you decide, I don't like the fact that somebody's looking at me, and you go do the Joe Biden thing, get your double-barrel shotgun and shoot a couple blasts out, you're going to end up in jail. Matter of fact, there was a case just recently of a guy. It's actually funny. You can see the guy getting arrested, the body cam video of the police coming to arrest the guy. And the amazing thing was he shot it down with a 9mm pistol. Okay, now, for those of you who don't understand guns too much, pistols have an accurate range out to maybe 50, 75 yards. Past that, it's pretty hard to hit. There's guys that can do it, but it's pretty hard to hit an object that's 70, especially one that's moving it up in the air. He hit it, and it was some kid in the neighborhood who was flying his drone, and this guy got tired of the drone buzzing his house, so he went out in the backyard and shot the drone down. Guess what? He got arrested for a number of different things. He discharged a firearm within a city limit, which a lot of cities have. You can't do that. And then the FAA people are going to take action against him. Anyway, long story made short, the whole thing is what this guy, and he's, like I said, he's a Special Forces guy. He essentially says that the government has handcuffed themselves and that the FAA has precedence over this. The Department of Defense cannot do anything unless it's over one of their bases. If it's over one of their bases, then they can take action. But essentially, if a drone is put up by the Russians or whatever and decides to hover over John Combest's house, there's nothing anybody can do about it.
So what's the fix to that? Does it have to be legislative?
Well, he said what needs to be looked at is, once again, it's one of these emerging technologies. I talked about the fact that the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian armed forces, had taken advantage of this because they're using these, essentially off-the-shelf drones, and essentially that's the whole thing. I mean, you'd be surprised how much you can, like for $2,000, you can buy a very sophisticated drone. I mean, very sophisticated. People talk about, well, it's just like a kid's toy. No, it's not. Matter of fact, one of the biggest growing fields within the drone industry is crop spraying. Do you know about this?
Yeah, we've talked about this extensively on the show. Yeah, but for folks who haven't caught it, talk about it.
Well, essentially what they do is these are large drones that back in the day sometimes they had the biplanes, the crop dusting guys, and these things have gotten to the point where they've gotten so good and so sophisticated that they can essentially, you know about this from your experience with Monsanto. The farmers are already doing this with GPS, where they know there's certain parts of their farm that have a more fertile ground than others, and they geomap this to the point where when the farmer is spraying his herbicides or his fertilizers, whatever, that certain areas that need more help get it because the machine automatically sprays more there. And the same thing with weeds and things like that. But that's the same thing they're doing with these drones, and it's much more cost effective than doing it with a crop duster, and even to the point where it's cheaper than the farmers can do it themselves because it's so much more accurate. And if you've seen these drones before, they are on the large size. I mean, it's not like the kind of thing, some of them are so small you can hold in hands. These things are rather large, and that's what they're reporting New Jersey, that some of these drones. Now, it's hard to, when you're standing on the ground. And my perfect example of this is, you're going to think this is weird, but I got a bunch of stoplights that was given to me. I mean, literally stoplights that you see in traffic, okay? And one day I had one of them sitting in the front office at our old studio in Washington. And the UPS guy came in to deliver a package, and he goes, "Whoa, is that a stoplight?" Because he had no idea how large it was, because when you're sitting in your car and sits up there, 15, 16 feet above your head, you don't think it's that big. But when you see them in, up close and personal, so the idea being is you could look at a plane and go like, oh my God, that plane looks small. When you see it on the ground, it's like a 747. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing.
Yeah, I do know.
So anyway, it was pretty interesting. And the guy was talking about the fact that it's, at this point in time, it's just the finger-pointing mess. The FAA say, hey, not our problem. If these people are going to do this illegally, what are we going to do? We don't, because once again, it's like the enforcement action. It's like the problem broadcasters have. We don't have it here much in the St. Louis area, but in New York City, they've had a terrible problem with the pirate radio guys that literally put a radio station on the air. And it got to the point for years and years and years, the FCC had very little teeth in this thing. And finally, the FCC went to the federal government and go, look, we've got this problem, and there's not much we can do. So what the FCC did was they worked with the Department of Justice. And the big problem in New York City was that a lot of these guys were putting these pirate radio stations on top of apartment buildings. And when the FCC would show up, they would they would grab the equipment and they'd leave. And then a week later, they'd have new equipment back up. There'd be backup broadcasting again. So they changed the law so that now the property owner is responsible. So in other words, if the FCC shows up and there's a pirate radio station going on in an apartment building, they essentially take the equipment and they say to the apartment building owner, if you allow this to happen again, there's $1 million fine a day. It's astronomical number.
And that's what happens when you do your live remotes outside of competitive radio stations, right? And that's where your beef with Diane Jones came from. Because you would just follow her around, right?
No. Can I tell you a weird story that you're not going to believe?
Yeah, please do.
Years ago, and unfortunately he's no longer with us, John Larrabee, who worked afternoons at the old KSOQ. We had a pretty nice program director at the time, and he said, hey, you guys, think out of the box, and let's do things that we don't normally just do. So one day was a nice spring day, so John decides, hey, I'll go do my show from Forest Park. And he came back in the engineering room and said to the engineers, hey, can I just get you guys to come out and do a remote broadcast with me out in Forest Park? So we set up on top of Art Hill, where the art museum is. And about an hour into the broadcast, we had a St. Louis City police officer show up. And he informed us, you ready for this? It's illegal.
I'm ready.
It's illegal to do a live broadcast in the city of St. Louis without a permit.
No way.
So apparently, somewhere back in like the 30s or 40s, where they would have these remote broadcasts, and there would be thousands of people who would show up for radio broadcasts, that they decided that we can't have all these people showing up at an appliance store. We have to be notified of it, so you have to get a permit to do a live radio broadcast in the city of St. Louis. Is that bizarre?
And
or
you
what?
told them, didn't you tell them that your middle name was Shamel? And you said, "Don't mess with me."
This was pre-Shamel. That shows you how old this was.
That's right, because you are a seasoned citizen. Your middle name is Cervantes.
Cervantes, right? Yeah. And matter of fact, I still go to the ballpark Hilton, and I still think to myself, God, it reminds me of the New York World's Fair. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Let's move on from that. Okay, the bizarre thing with this guy, the Luigi Mangione thing. Okay, can this thing get any weirder? I mean, more weird stuff comes out every day.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And now they're essentially, the article I read this morning, they're pointing fingers at apparently he has a very large family, and he has like dozens of cousins. Have you read this story?
No, I haven't read the cousin story.
Well, the cousin story is they're saying, okay, there's lots of family members that knew exactly who this was, but nobody said anything. And you go like, and some people are going like, well, no, hold on a minute now. How do they not say anything? And the interesting part of it was they said, how is it that a dude at McDonald's and a McDonald's employee can pick this guy out who doesn't really know him, but yet his relatives didn't say anything? Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but maybe, I mean, would you say that for the average American, all of their cousins pay close attention to the news?
Well, I would think
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but come on, I would think that if it talks about he's got like dozens of cousins, very large.
You would think that mathematically one of them would see the news and be like, wait a minute, that looks like cousin Luigi.
Exactly. That's Luigi. What's Luigi doing in New York City? Now, but the other interesting thing was, and then they have a psychologist who comes on, and it's a pretty interesting article. And the psychologist essentially said, you got to understand, this guy was supposedly like a model citizen. He's got a master's degree, a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science, and he was the valedictorian of his high school class and a whole bit like that. And it's to the point where I can put myself in that position that, is there somebody in your life that you thought, oh my God, this guy's got it made, and then went way off the skids, way off the tracks? Does anybody like that ring a bell with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good example is I know a guy who had been wildly successful and, in fact, was one of the only people in Missouri that actually owned his own radio stations. And then one day he just backed into his own car.
Thanks, John.
And I thought, where did this guy go wrong? Like, for so long, I just admired this man's intelligence and his knowledge. And then, but like, is it dementia? What is it? Like, why is he, or is he just a violent man that destroys his own cars? So I understand what you're saying, Brad.
The sad part of that is we're talking two vehicles. One vehicle which has 297,000 miles on it, and the other vehicle which had 260,000 miles on it, neither which had ever been in an accident. Both had absolutely positively the one car in my family since it was bought in 2010. The other car, I know the original owner, and I bought it from the original owner in 2002. Both vehicles never been in an accident, and one day I smashed car A into car B in my parking lot at the radio station. I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe I did that. Okay.
Now, remember, in your defense, what a lot of people don't know is that you were pitching that campaign for the alley and WashMo. You were pitching actually a demolition derby. And so you have this on video because you wanted them. They're a new advertiser, by the way. But thanks to you, Brad, you were demonstrating what a demolition derby could look like. And I guess the video was actually on the same laptop that recorded our show yesterday. So we never actually got the video. But right. Yeah, Brad, in your defense, it was for a productive reason.
Okay. I've been working out at the gym. And I did this on Monday. I did this again yesterday. I've been listening to the Adam Carolla show, and I've been listening to the Gene Simmons part of it. And, once again, Adam Carolla is like Joe Rogan. He goes on for hours with these guests. Gene Simmons from KISS is absolutely, positively fascinating. I mean, this guy, and he told stories yesterday that were just unbelievable. And you know what the story he told yesterday that I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe this.
What happened?
Do you know who he used to manage and he had under contract? Because when he got to be famous with Kiss, he had different groups under contract with him. He saw this band playing someplace in L.A. and he said, oh my God, these guys are so good. And he went to them and he said, I want to sign you to me being your personal manager, and I'm going to get your recording contract. And they went with him, and after like 6 months, 8 months, they went nowhere, and the record label decided, these guys suck. This group's not going anywhere. Guess who the group was?
You told the story last week, Brad. It was Hootie and the Blowfish.
No. This is a different one.
Oh, okay. I thought that. I'm sorry. I thought it was the Hootie story. No, I don't know this one.
No, this was an A&R guy who was on with Mark Reardon who talked about the fact that he signed Hootie and the Blowfish.
Oh, that's right. Okay, who did Gene Simmons sign?
Van Halen.
No way.
Yes, he said Van Halen was their group, and he saw them at some party he was at, some club in L.A., and he thought, oh my God, these guys are incredible. So he goes and talks to him and convinces him that they should be under his management. He signs him to a contract. He gets a contract with, I can't remember what the label was, and he's pushing them all the time. And the label's going, we don't see it, we don't hear it. And they essentially did like several recording sessions, put together an album. And the record company said, you know what, we're not spending any more money on these guys. These guys are out of here. So they still had this personal management agreement with Gene Simmons, and Gene Simmons felt bad about the fact that he told them, that oh my God, you guys are so great, and I'm going to get you the contract, and you're going to make a lot of money, and you're going to sell lots of records. That he released them from the contract, and he said they went to another record label. I can't remember whatever record label is, and they snapped them up, and the rest is history. And I'm going like, holy cow. And once again, that executive who said, like, the story I told about Hootie and the Blowfish, but in this case, the executive of that record company saying, this group sucks, we don't want them. Who is that guy, and does he still work for that record company? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's to the point.
I do know. I have, in fact, I'm paging through right now. I have David Lee Roth's autobiography. And I don't remember the story at all, but I'm paging through here to look and see if he mentions actually here the whole Gene Simmons thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I don't know if David Lee Roth was with the group because the original. It's sort of like if you go back in history, Fleetwood Mac. The original Fleetwood Mac group was like this sort of like a Fish kind of group, you know what I'm talking about, who did all these sort of free-form concerts and things like that. And then when the original founders left and Lindsey Buckingham, it's sort of like the Doobie Brothers kind of thing. There's two versions of the Doobie Brothers. You got the original version of the Doobie Brothers, and then you got the Michael McDonald version of the Doobie Brothers, which is like two different bands. You know what I mean? Like the Doobie Brothers was this like hard rocking, and the whole idea, the Doobie Brothers. Think about what that's all about, and then
it's the chick that had the Doobie show, right? What was that show, Brad?
I don't know, John. You're talking about Romper Room?
Doobie, yeah. What was? Well, you quote that a lot. What is that?
Don't be a do be a doobie.
Yeah. And Michael O'Donnell, wasn't he? Who was the guy that went to McCluer High School?
That's Michael McDonald.
Michael McDonald, yeah, okay.
North County guy. I think he grew up in Ferguson, of all crazy places.
I think he did. Yeah. Did he go to North or did he go to regular McCluer?
That was back in the day, just regular old McCluer.
Okay.
Yeah, there was that. North came in the mid to late 70s. No, I think it was mid to late 70s. I think North came in like 78 or 79. I'll see if I can find the history on that. Hey, North County guys, we know that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And Shine Sweet Freedom is one of the best songs from a terrible soundtrack.
What soundtrack is that, John?
I don't know. It's a movie that I never saw. I'll look it up on the break.
Okay, we have to take a break, and I got to get Jack Frost on the line. He's got some big news to give us. Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?